And we'll let Lalita move in here. Hello, Lalita. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
All right, we are on page 515 of Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play, looking at the idea of God as mother. And of course, we know in Vedanta you can have any of five relationships with God. And really, I would posit to say you could probably have any relationship with God that's helpful to you in falling in love and nurturing that relationship. But God as mother has been, well, since time immemorial, really. I think the earliest religious figurines we have are of goddesses. And this idea of Mother Earth and Mother Nature is inherent in our experience of it because it is this manifested world that gives birth to itself, that propagates itself continuously in the divine feminine. And they've always attributed, and it's not because one is actually male and one is actually female. It has nothing to do with that. It's our own projection on these things, but that the divine, the unchanging absolute God without form is considered male, oddly enough, and that the power of God, the manifestation of God, anything that you can see, hear, taste, touch, or smell of the divine is the divine feminine, and that whenever God has incarnated, and according to some of the world's oldest scriptures, God has been incarnating for quite some time. And whenever he comes, he always represents himself as both male and female. And so it's interesting to look at especially the Hindu scriptures, and you can see that there's always a consort there. And if there's not, there's quite a possibility that he has come as two in one, as such. All right, so we've been looking at the letters of the Divine Mother of Sri Sarada Devi, and we've noticed several things in them. One is a constant call to practice that she puts out there for all of us, to really dig into your practice, because that's where it happens. You know, God is within you, and the means of discovering that, of uncovering that, realizing that, knowing that, is through personal practice, investigating your inner world, which is not something we're very accustomed to doing. And so you have to go in there and just start observing very carefully. That's really all you need to do is close your eyes, go inside, and just start watching. Just start listening, just paying attention to everything going on. Don't listen to your mind as if it's you thinking to yourself. Observe the mind as a third party. That's the reality of it. And see how it goes. Observe the body as a third party. Don't observe it as your own. Observe it as a third party in there. And just through this constant practice of watching, you will come to know amazing things about yourself that were not available to you when you were focusing on the external world all the time. And so this is a secret of the Vedanta, and a constant call by all of the teachers to go inward, find that kingdom of the beloved within you. And so Mother is encouraging us in her letters to do that, to rely on God, to depend on grace, to know that the hardest work has been done for us, that really just chanting the names, just being in the presence, just remembering the presence is enough for us to transform. That awareness itself is not a neutral thing. Awareness itself uh, uh, implements the divine nature, Satchitananda. So through our awareness, we emphasize Satchitananda, love, wisdom, and being, emphasizes itself because it is the fundamental nature of what we are, of the divine potential within us. And that when you just notice the wrong things in your life, if you keep them in your light of awareness, they will change, because being anything less than a Buddha or a Rama or a Krishna or a Jesus for us is unnatural. We are in our nature meant to be as free as the beloved, as free as the divine, not to be trapped and encumbered in time, space, causation. We were meant to live this dream with the full knowledge that we're dreaming, that we are something, that everything here is just a trinket manifestation of a symbol that points at a reality that cannot be captured, that cannot be boundaried, whether it's visual, audible, or sensual, but God cannot be bounded in that sense. All right, so we were looking at one of the letters, facsimiles of letters, copies of these old letters. So we have one here to Sri Sri Hari, written. He says, "My dear son, I have received your letter. Please accept my blessings. Call on the Master. He will do everything for you. All are well here. Your mother." The following letter was written to Jatindranath Ghosh of Khulna on 11/3/1915. The style and language of the letter appear to be Holy Mother's, but we cannot confirm that she wrote it. So here's the letter, because they are putting them in facsimiles. I'll just show them to you. It's in Bengali, obviously. All right. Refuge at the feet of the Guru. My dear, I learned everything from your letter. An English doctor is now treating Radu since last Thursday. He is the top doctor in the hospital. If you could find some shishu oil, a little footnote, shishu is a small dolphin, and its oil is used externally for rheumatism. So if you could find some shishu oil, please send it to me. One should perform good works whenever possible without waiting for an auspicious or inauspicious time. The bad time destroys past samskaras, and the vision of God comes from virtuous deeds. If possible, please send some shishu oil, which I need for my leg pain. Please accept my blessings. Your mother. So it is, one should perform good works whenever possible without waiting for an auspicious or an inauspicious time. So what she's saying, really simply, it's always a good time to do good. It's always a good time for any endeavor to do positively, to serve for the world. You don't have to wait. Of course, we don't really deal with that. We don't have all of these ideas. I almost said superstitions, but about time, that Thursdays are better than Tuesdays, or this day is more auspicious than that day, or this date is somehow more auspicious than that date. It just kind of eludes us as a culture, but in India, those things were very important. And if you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna or any of their books of these disciples' lives, you see that they constantly are querying their book. What do they call that? I can't remember the name. What is that name of that book that has the weather for the whole year in it? It comes out, the almanac. There it is. So they would constantly referencing their almanac to know when it was an auspicious time to begin a journey or to end a journey or to visit a person, or all of these different things. They were very, very much full of the idea that there were arrangements of stars that made certain activities better at certain times than at others. Right. The period of Ramakrishna's ministry was 6 to 7 years, and the number of his disciples, devotees, and admirers might be close to 100. On the other hand, Holy Mother's ministry took place over a period of 34 years, and her disciples and devotees numbered in the thousands. Brahmachari Akshay Chaitanya recorded in Sri Sri Mayur Padaprante, Part 2, the number of Mother's initiated disciples as 1,176, but that does not seem to be a complete list. It is amazing how the mother, a village woman without formal education, kept in touch with her many disciples and devotees through correspondence. Those who wrote down the mother's dictation, they may not have known elegant language or correct spelling or how to form nice sentences, but the recipients of those letters felt Holy Mother's heartfelt love, her blessings, and her divine presence through those words. Most of the letters were short and to the point, and they were written on postcards, not on stationery. Holy Mother acknowledged gifts from her devotees. She inquired about their welfare. She answered their spiritual questions. She showered her infallible blessings upon them. Blessed are those devotees who received letters from the Holy Mother, the spiritual companion of an avatar. So this beautiful notes that she wrote to everybody. You know, we had one in San Francisco. I've seen several of them at Bellarmont. Just these small notes. They didn't have, many of them weren't, well, we've seen a lot of them here. They're just 2 or 3 lines, which I really like, because a lot of times I get behind on my emails because I feel somehow obligated to write, to write right when I answer one of them. And it's nice to know that you don't have to do that. You can say some very heartfelt, very sweet things that are very encouraging, just a letter or two, to let people know you're thinking about them, that they're in your heart, that they're in your sphere of awareness. I definitely don't do that enough. I end up not writing back because I end up getting a list of so many emails that have to be answered, and I never get the time to answer them effectively as long as I want, and so then they build up, and then I only get to answer 30 or 40% of them, and the rest I figure, well, when they write back again, I'll write them first. Anyway, but did you see how Mother wasn't stuck with like that at all? She's like, no, she got that letter out there and said what she needed to say, and said it very sweetly. And I don't know, I've been thinking a lot as we were reading these letters from Mother. I was thinking, gosh, I should start just writing letters to people again. Nobody gets stuff in the mail these days. And every now and then I get a wonderful letter from one of you all. And it is so exciting to see something in the mailbox and to pull it out and just have it just to be a little encouraging card, or, a little something that somebody sent. I think that's, if we want to work on being a Sangha together, I think it would be a wonderful thing to have that be one of our unique characteristics, that we handwrite letters and notes to each other with some
frequency. Then I don't even have people's phone numbers in email, let alone their address.
Yes. Well, there's task number 1, Regina. Yes. No, we have to get their addresses for sure. And Sevilla will have a lot of them. I have some of them. So if you do need someone's address, and if it's someone that I know wouldn't mind, I'll send that address to you. If not, I'll have them send it to you.
I'll compose something.
Yeah. And it's not an assignment. I just think it's a wonderful idea. I just, because I know how much I love getting those actual letters in the mail, and they are something from the past. But a lot of those things that we've left behind had added quite a lovely quality to life that kind of left them when they ended. It's not the same thing getting an email. It's just not. With a letter, it's handwritten. You're getting a piece of that person. And the effort to put it together, to mail it, to get it to you, also adds to the meaningfulness of it. And then, how you wrote, and whether you drew any little pictures, or whether you included something else, or whether it was on a card or a nice paper or something, or you perfumed it, or whatever. But, there's so many ways of loving that we've limited ourselves away from in this technological age. There's so many ways of thinking of people, and of caring about people, that just have fallen out of I don't know, out of popularity. I remember, like, some of them, like when I was young, we were a military family, so we moved all the time. And I just remember, up until I was a teenager, there was never a neighborhood that we moved into where we didn't get a basket on our front step at some point in the first month, just welcoming us to the neighborhood, and, giving us some food and some whatnots, and kind of just letting us know what was up. And usually it came with an invitation to have dinner or something with somebody. But that notion, that certainly doesn't seem to happen much anymore, if at all. And that would be a wonderful thing to revive. I'm trying to, I'm sort of viewing all of you as a Sangha bomb, that we can change this culture that we're living in by changing the way we are with each other. If we start becoming these things with each other and let that spill out over the edges, we can be a balm for beauty, a beauty balm, a care balm in the world. And so this is what Sangha is. This is for us to experiment with. How can we use Sangha to add more love to our world that we're experiencing? It might be a great way to start really finding a point of focus and using our Sangha to just practice expressing God, expressing love, expressing wisdom, expressing peace to one another. All right. We're on chapter 28, The Untold Stories of Jairambati. Jairambati is the town, the little village that Mother grew up in, and it's a very beautiful, beautiful little area. The whole town is just a bunch of small mud shacks, huts, but beautifully coiffed grass roofs on them, and or twig roofs in some cases, but all very neat, all very nicely put together, very nicely decorated, like in Mother's house. There's all these wonderful patterns painted on the floor of the stairs and on the front porch of her home. And the houses are all clustered together in a small village, and then surrounding them are just miles and miles of these rice paddies, which are so deeply verdant, so green. They just rich, rich green. And of course, they've all got little berms separating them all out. And occasionally there's a chunk of tree somewhere or a river comes through somewhere. But it's just so lovely and peaceful there. You really almost, it's almost like you've stepped into the Divine Mother's personality in a way. There's just such a humility about the space. There's such a sweetness to the villagers in that place. The atmosphere is so relaxing, just so anti-stress. It's a marvelous place to be. And the monks and the uh, folks at the ashram there are so like Mother. She is their ideal, and they've just worked so hard at emulating that. Mother, you have bound our hearts to you with affection. You have turned all our vices into virtues, despite our shortcomings. You have taken us on your lap out of mere compassion. How wonderful is your divine play. And then that just opens up lots of ways of expressing grace. We often talk that each one of us, are our lives are a response to grace, a grace that has freely given us freedom. And that it's really, our lives are just an expression in response to that grace. And so, really, our spiritual practice is about learning what that grace means, learning that it's real, learning seeing and observing its meaningfulness and its value in our lives, and then by accepting it, to allow ourselves to live in response to it. That is how we are changed. That's how we transcend. Holy Mother grew up in 19th century Bengal and followed the ancient Indian traditions that closely controlled women's lives. Before marriage, girls freely and fearlessly moved around their parents' homes and the villages of their birth. They talked loudly, wore casual clothing, mixed freely with neighbors, and did not follow formalities or suffer restrictions. But when they married, they moved to their husbands' homes where they were required to speak softly, to wear more formal attire, and to observe their husbands' family's traditions and formalities. They could not travel alone, they could not mix freely with others, and they were required to veil their faces. In Jairambati, Holy Mother was known as Saru, Sari, or Sarada, and she was simple, a village girl, the daughter of Ramchandra and Shyama Sundari. In Karmarpakor, however, she was the wife of Ramakrishna, a shy daughter-in-law in the Chattopadhyaya family. In Karmarpakor, and later in Dakshineshwar and Calcutta, she wore a long veil that could not speak openly or travel freely. She silently served others and acted as a mother and a guru. In Jairambati, she was a daughter first, and only secondly a mother and a guru. Holy Mother made many trips to Jairambati from Calcutta to enjoy this freedom. It is said in the scriptures, Nistraigunye pati vicharatam ko vidhi ko nishedaha. That person is free from injunctions and prohibitions who walks on the path of Nirguna Brahman. It is difficult for a free soul to follow the minute details of social customs and rules. Holy Mother always felt a natural attraction toward her humble thatched hut in Jairambati with its mud walls and floor. There was no running water, modern toilets or paved roads in her village either, but its air was clean and it was surrounded by trees and meadows. It seems that the mother sometimes got bored and tired of living confined within the four walls of the Udbodhan house in Calcutta. One of the main causes of her rheumatism was a lack of physical movement, which started in Dakshineshwar, where she lived like a caged bird. Although Jairambati was infested with malaria and dysentery and lacked good food and medicine and the amenities of city life, still, she pined for her native village. And it's not hard at all to understand that when you go see it. Udbodhan is very much in a very busy, noisy part of Calcutta, very congested, millions of people around everywhere. And there's not many trees or any flowers or anything nearby. And then you get to Jairambati, and just like I described earlier, just this wonderful, small, peaceful village that really, it's so easy to see that that's the intended life for us. As I've grown up in my life, when I was younger, I loved the cities. I liked the noise. I liked the constant distraction. But as you get more comfortable with yourself, as you grow older, you start kind of moving into your inner world. Uh, you just see that this world, without man changing it, is beautiful, just beautiful. We cannot make a city like a forest. We cannot make a house like a cave. I mean, there's, we, not that I'm saying we should all go live in caves, but it's just this, that we in the world are not separate from each other. In modern life, we're completely artificial. We've stepped completely outside of our natural selves. Very rarely do we step barefoot into the grass, or do we run through the woods without being afraid of 1,000 different things, getting ticks, getting snake bites, getting mosquito bites, getting, poison ivy or poison sumac or any of these things. And, one thing you watch when you watch these older movies and stuff, that people were not afraid of nature. People weren't afraid to swim in a lake. They weren't afraid to swim in the river. They weren't afraid, and modern life has taught us to fear everything, just fear, 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 so that we can hardly even function unless we're on a cement surface, and we should really think about that to kind of return more to the temple, the temple, which means that which God makes without our hands. Those things that the divine has created of its own inspiration, and to get in touch with that again, to build relationship with that. Best way to do that is gardening. Oh goodness, to get out and garden. There is something about touching the earth and putting plants in and nurturing them, growing them, that really brings God to the forefront in your mind, in your life, as you just watch yourself interact with nature, plant a seed and watch it grow. That's still one of the most amazing things in the world. I remember when I was in fourth grade, I found a seed while I was out helping my mother in the garden, and I planted that seed. I went and cut a milk carton in half, and filled it with soil, and I planted that seed in that milk carton just because I wanted to see what would grow out of it. I had no idea what kind of seed it was. And I grew that thing. And I remember we went on a camping trip, and we came back from the camping trip, and there in the front window of the living room was my little cardboard, little box with a big petunia flower sticking up out of it, that I had actually found a petunia seed. And this purple and white striped petunia had grown out of that. You can't imagine how excited I was by such a silly little thing. But that, you want to appreciate the power of the beloved. You want evidence of a divine. Just start getting involved with nature like that, and start comprehending, start looking and understanding what's happening. That you're planting a seed, this tiny little dot of a thing in soil, and of its own accord, it's creating a plant, one molecule at a time, in the perfect structure, in the perfect order. And then that plant will again produce seeds that can reproduce itself with just a little water and soil and sunshine. This is how God becomes real, not by having to believe things or forcing ourselves to believe things, but by observing. That's why the constant teaching for our practice is to go inside and observe, be the witness, watch. That's how we learn. And the presence of God is something we learn. It's something we believe in naturally, just because there is this sense of other that's so grand and big around us. But that interaction with it, working with the plants, getting out into nature, taking a walk in the woods, observing things, and letting yourself think. I'm going to give myself permission to talk like an old man here. These days of villages where life was so much slower, and even the days without villages, even the younger days that I had, where you had to sit in a doctor's office in the waiting room without anything. You didn't have anything to to entertain yourself with. They would have some old, overused magazines on the table there, but you would have time to think. I can remember taking the bus to work every day. There were no portable computers, there were no cell phones. I could bring a book if I wanted on the bus, but most of the time I just sat there and thought, just let my mind work through all the stuff it had experienced and sort of grind it all up into meaning, put things away in the different components of mind. And so the modern life has really taken that from us. And I think it's up to us to put it back. Slow your life down a bit. Don't pull your phone out every time you've got a moment to think. Just give yourself hours a day of time to think, time to recognize the amazement of the experience of being, because that's where God comes from. That's where the awareness of God comes from paying attention and not letting yourself be continually distracted. Once the mother told Swami Arupananda, "You see, here in Calcutta, I always move carefully and speak cautiously because people get offended easily. I would rather live happily in Jairambati than in Calcutta. In Jairambati, I can say what is on my mind without reservation, and others reciprocate in the same way. Neither do they mind anything, nor do I. There's no misunderstanding. But the people of Calcutta, they get hurt if words are used just a little improperly." Ashutosh Mitra recorded an interesting incident. During the worship in Udbodhan, we heard the mother speaking to the master. "I understand that you like the sandesh and rasgolas of Calcutta and don't care for the plain food and the water from the big pond of Jairambati." We knew that the mother was preparing to visit Jairambati, and her resolve would not be altered by anyone's request. It is said that the master once told her, "This Jairambati will ruin your life." And actually, the master's words came true when toward the end of she contracted Kala Azar there, which I guess that's a disease. I'm not sure. Anybody know what Kala Azar is? Something you catch. Let
How
me
is
go.
it spelled?
What's that?
How is it spelled?
It's spelled Kala dash Azar.
It's black fever.
Black fever. Okay. Well, we've moved one step forward without learning anything.
Right?
All right.
Apparently it causes severe pain.
Oh,
So,
boy. That's too bad.
yeah, in the abdomen.
All right. Holy Mother loved to be independent and self-reliant. She could not bear to be a burden to others. Before 1915, when her new residence in Jairambati was built, she lived with her brother's families when in Jairambati. She helped them financially and served them with much physical labor. She was never a burden to them. Rather, they became a burden to her. In fact, without her help, their households would have been a pitiable condition. She carried their burden till the end. Once she remarked, "I'm paying their debt." This idea that she was paying their debt, that she was the one who was having to work uh, uh, in all of this, that she was the one having to pay off all of their karma. And really, in fact, that's what she was doing. That's what she does for us as well. These incarnations, like Jesus and Rama and Buddha, they paved the way for us to get to our nature, to get back to our real identity. She once remarked, "I'm paying their debt." But the master's disciples adored her. They looked after her with great love and great respect. They never took advantage of her. The master told her to look after the people of Calcutta. So she lived in Calcutta and she helped them spiritually. The disciples tried their utmost to make her life comfortable wherever she was. Although Udbodhan House was Holy Mother's home in Calcutta, she considered it to be an ashram for the monks. She made sure that her relatives and dependents did not inconvenience them. She may also have felt uncomfortable accepting service from the monks for long periods and went to Jairambati with her family and companions from time to time to give them a break. Swami Parameshwarananda described Jairambati during Holy Mother's time like this. At that time, Jairambati was also called Tentulmuri. There were only a few literate persons in Jairambati, and even they lived mostly in Calcutta or somewhere else. The condition of the village was very bad, and the roads were horrible. The main road passed through the middle of the village. There was a ditch in the road, and during the rainy season, the ditch filled with water and flooded the houses on the southern side of the village. The water level of the Punya Pukur and the road was the same. The road was so muddy that sometimes cows got stuck in it and people had to lift them with bamboo poles. Only the Banerjee family of the village tried to maintain their prestige and culture to some extent. There was only a little scope to learn reading and writing in the kindergarten school, and only 3 or 4 people had some kind of job. The rest lived by farming. There were factions and enmity among the villagers. Under such village circumstances, the mother lived in such a low profile that no one knew who she was. The villagers called her sister or aunt or mother, and she loved them all equally. Still, they disturbed her by demanding money under various pretexts. Even the leaders of the village would ask her for money during the public worship for the village. Nowadays, one can go from Vishnupur to Jairambati within an hour by car or bus. But it was not easy to travel to Jairambati during Holy Mother's time. It's not easy in these times either. Of course, the last trip I remember was 2012. I took a bus to Jairambati, and I was in bed for 3 days after that because I threw my back out so badly. I was literally bouncing like 2 or 3 feet out of the chair as we were driving along that road. At one point, I was behind the bus driver, and I told the bus driver, I said, it would be much smoother if you drove in the paddy field over there. literally, the fields looked like they were smoother than the road was. But it was quite a journey. I mean, traveling in India, just in general, you'll see when you go, it takes something out of you. It's never just a matter of get in, sit down, and wait. It's a matter of get in, defend, get squashed, get bumped, moved, rolled over. Oh, India. So nowadays, one can go from Vishnupur to Jairambati within an hour by car or bus, but it was not easy to travel to Jairambati during Holy Mother's time. When the train service connected to Vishnupur, Holy Mother would make an overnight train from Calcutta to Vishnupur and then travel the final 28 miles by bullock cart, which took 10 to 12 hours. In the early days, she had no devotees in Vishnupur, so she would halt near Lalband Lake, and her attendants would cook some food for her at a roadside inn. In 1909, Swami Sadananda, a disciple of Vivekananda, stayed for a couple of months in the house of Sureshwar Sen in Vishnupur. Sureshwar, his brother Boshishwar, and the entire family became ardent followers of Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. From 1911 onward, Holy Mother usually rested in the Sen family's home during their journey to Jairambati. Ramakrishna once told her, "Hello, Vishnupur is a hidden Vrindavan. You must see it." At that time, the mother did not realize that she would have to pass through Vishnupur many times. So she said, "I'm a woman. How can I see that place?" The master replied, "No, my dear, you will see it." One day, the mother visited the Sarvamangala temple on the bank of the Lalband and then exclaimed, "Oh, truly, the master's words have come true today." It was a tedious journey to cover the final distance from Vishnupur to Jairambati. Bullock carts were constructed of bamboo strips. The driver spread some hay on the cart to cover those strips, and the passengers spread a blanket or a cotton sheet over the hay. There was a canopy over the cart, and the passengers sat or lay down in the shade with their luggage. The bullock cart moved slowly over the undulating, unpaved road with a constant jerking motion. Yes, and that does not convey even a portion of that undulating, jerky, unpaved road motion. We're talking hurling yourself into the air several feet at a time. When the Holy Mother traveled, she and her attendants stopped along the way to cook food at roadside inns or to drink water from ponds. During these breaks in the journey, Holy Mother rubbed her knees with a little mustard oil to get some relief from the rheumatic pain. Beginning in 1911, the mother made Koalpara another halting place between Vishnupur and Jairambati. There, her devotees built Jangadaba Ashram for her, and that's still there to this day. You can go and see that. It's a wonderful little ashram near a pond. It's got a nice wall around it. Very small, very humble little kutir in there, but you can go in there now and spend time on your own just meditating in Mother's room where she lived. There used to be a wonderful Swami there in Koalpara who later went off and became a wandering sadhu along the Narmada. And I knew some devotees that used to go and take a pilgrimage to try and find him in his little hut on the Narmada. But it's a marvelous place. If you ever get to go to India, definitely Koalpara will be one of the places you'll want to go. It's that town where I met that old man who, remember, fell down, and when he found out that I was a monk, that I was a brahmachari. Yeah, so he was there, that old man. I met him there. And that's just the beauty. I tell people, if you want to know what is the attraction of India, what is the most beautiful thing you'll see in India, I tell people, get out of the cities as soon as you can, as fast as you can. Get into the villages and look into the eyes of the village people. That is something you can't see anywhere else in the world that I've been anyway. Is that to look into a human being's eyes, who's still a human being, not somebody that's been exploited and advertised and, cajoled and manipulated their whole life. but somebody who's lived in the fresh air of the village with no radios, no televisions, you know, no internet, no telephone, no nothing of that sort, but grew up amongst humans in a purely human environment. And you'll see what we've lost. You'll see what we've done in this modern age, how protected we've had to become, how calloused we've had to become to survive the world that we've created. You know, where and I really saw this when I got there at that time. When I got off the bus in Jairambati, there was this group of people that were threshing rice right there, and I asked them where the ashram was, and I was dressed in brahmachari outfit clothes, so dhoti and whatnot. And they were very puzzled why I was looking for the ashram. When I told them I was a brahmachari, the Ramakrishna order, oh my God, that was crazy. They were so full of love, and they just couldn't do enough for me. They were carrying my luggage. They were, holding my hand and skipping along and wanting to know everything they could possibly figure out how to ask me. And just to see the potential of what you are as a human being. We talk about realization and we talk about holy people and all of that, but you don't have to talk about it in those terms. Just go see a human being who's been allowed to be a human being from their birth. To be a human being is to be beautiful. It's to be warm and innocent and open and guileless, trusting, caring, honest. It's just such a beautiful thing to see. A very wonderful thing to be reminded of in ourselves, what we were before we were taken advantage of for the first time. Once, when Yoganma was going to Jairambati with Sharadananda, she remarked, "Look, it's easier to go to Gaya and Varanasi than to come to Jairambati." Sharadananda gravely replied, "Is Jairambati a less holy place than Gaya or Varanasi?" Sarada, later Bharatiprana, recalled a journey with Holy Mother to Jairambati. "When I went to Jairambati with the mother, the bullock cart jolted right and left and sometimes moved backward. One day, I mentioned to Holy Mother, 'People are going to Varanasi and Vrindavan in such comfort, and how difficult it is to come to your birthplace.' She replied, 'This is the way it goes, my child. A pilgrimage is always full of hardship, but the result is the same. Only two persons could travel in one bullock cart. I sometimes would get down from the cart and walk 3/4 of the way to Jairambati. Nowadays, how easy it is to go to Jairambati.' Jairambati was truly a remote village, and during the rainy season, people suffered from malaria and dysentery. Mail was delivered twice a week from the Anur post office. Once the Amador River was flooded and mail delivery was cut off. Sharadananda did not get any news about the mother for a long time, so he sent a man from Calcutta to Jairambati. When the man saw that Holy Mother was suffering from dysentery, he wrote a letter to Sharadananda and posted it at the Kodalpur post office, which is 9 miles away. Sharadananda immediately sent Dr. Kanjilal and Sister Sudhira to look after Holy Mother, and eventually she got well. We complain even a little about a small amount of discomfort, whereas the mother endured many physical problems without disturbing others. She was the embodiment of fortitude." Swami Sharadeshananda left this eyewitness account of her motherly concern. The mother used to live in Jairambati like a daughter of her father's house. She wore no veil or purdah there, and she talked with people without hesitation. For that reason, her children flocked there to meet her. In Udbodhan, the monks and devotees served and looked after her, whereas in Jairambati, the mother was busy taking care of the monks and devotees. She collected the groceries, she cooked the meals, she fed the devotees, she cleaned their eating places, and she arranged for their rest. Those who came from far away, she kept at her place, at least for a couple of days. She was always anxious to make them comfortable. She inquired about their home and their family, listened to their tales of joy and sorrow, expressed her sympathy and her empathy, and gave them spiritual advice. She acted as a mother, a true mother. When the devotees were about to leave, she became sad and tears trickled from her eyes. She continued watching them until they were out of her sight. That picture of the mother remained engraved forever in the hearts of those devotees. That's why they call her the Divine Mother. They want another simple practice. That was Mother's practice, just seeing everybody as her child and taking responsibility for everybody's welfare, for their lives. It's another beautiful insight to what spiritual life, what life could be for us if we remember our nature, if we don't let ourselves get calcified by the world that we live in, but remember to be kind in as a way of being, not as an act, not as something we do every now and then, not an act of kindness, but to be kindness, so that that's everybody's experience of you when they meet you. Always have an encouraging thing in your mind to say towards someone. Always look for the good thing about them to mention to them. Not things that cause egoism, but just kind things that are nice for each other. She's our ideal, after all, right? Holy Mother's daily life. It is amazing how the mother lived harmoniously with her young nieces, her sisters-in-law, the women devotees, and also the young monks and male devotees in the small living quarters of Jairamati. Although all were her children, she kept an eye on the men and women devotees so that they did not mix or talk freely. Her male attendants and devotees stayed in the front cottage, and the women in the back cottages. And during the meals, Mother would call the men devotees, feed them, and talk to them, but she did not allow them to linger. She reminded them, "Whatever we might be, my children, we have female forms." The mother made a special effort to instill monastic ideals in the hearts of her young attendants. 100 years ago, in 1915, the mother was still living in her physical body on this earth and lived in Jairamati and Calcutta. Though we were not fortunate enough to see her divine play, her disciples left their reminiscences for us. We can now visualize her daily routine, how she cooked and cut vegetables, what she ate and what her favorite dishes were, how she talked to and initiated the devotees, how she dealt with her relatives and disciples, how she suffered from malarial fever and rheumatic pain, how she traveled by train and bullock cart, her meditation and ecstasy, and so on. It is natural for the devotees to know the mother's daily routine in Jairamati. Saradeshananda gave this eyewitness account. Early in the morning. Now, when they say early in the morning in India, they mean early in the morning. They're talking like 3:30 in the morning. Early in the morning, the mother would get up, wake the master, and put his picture on the altar. After bathing, she prepared the things necessary for the master's worship. She cut the fruits and got the navedya, the food offering, ready. She then performed the worship and afterward distributed the prasad to all members of the household. Afterward, she went to the kitchen to help the cook. She chopped vegetables and cooked some items. Some women devotees helped her. When the food was ready, she offered it to the master. As long as she was physically able, she distributed the food to the devotees and removed their leaf plates. Later, sitting on the veranda, she watched her children eat and instructed the server to give more food to some of them. After lunch, she served them betel rolls. She loved to see the disciples chewing betel after a nice meal. That's that wrapped in, is it tobacco leaves, or I'm not sure what that stuff is. They made I guess, betel leaf, since it's called betel leaf. Anyway, it's one of those things they take it's got, some lime in it, some, I don't know, different spices, different things in there. Anyway, some people really like it. I'm not really one of those folks, but you can get it even at a Vedanta center. Sometimes at some of these bigger, like Ramakrishna's birthday or something, somebody will usually bring some betel leaf, and they'll serve them. And if you're quick, you can get yourself one or two. Hmm. After lunch, she served them betel rolls. She loved to see the disciples chewing betel after a nice meal. Sometimes she shared some of her food with her brother's family. After lunch, the mother cleaned her teeth with tobacco powder and answered the questions of the devotees. Then she would go and rest. Swami Shadadeshananda recorded what Holy Mother generally ate in Jairambati. The menu was like the menu of an ordinary middle-class family. Breakfast was puffed rice. Lunch was rice, urad dal, poppy seed curry, and a hot vegetable curry, a chutney and sometimes spinach or another vegetable dish, boiled vegetables, a fried dish, occasionally a fish for the devotees. Previously, the mother used to cook and also serve. Later, she instructed her attendants about how to set the leaf plates and the asanas properly, i.e., maintaining equal distance from one another and an equal water level in all the glasses. When the food was ready, she called the monks and devotees to come and eat so that the flies would not sit on the food. If anyone was late, she waved to the corner of her upper cloth to drive away the flies from the food. She joyfully watched her children eat and asked the server to give more to some of them. Supper chapati, a type of flatbread, a vegetable curry, milk, and molasses. The mother used to make the dough and flatten the chapatis. When the food was ready, she offered it to the master and then covered the dishes so that they would remain warm. Some evenings, Aunt Banu would massage the mother's feet. If she was tired, she would lie down on the veranda and ask her attendant to rub garlic oil on her legs. When the disciples had finished their japam and meditation, the mother called them for supper. The mother protected the food with a stick so that Radu's cat would not eat it. There was an oil lamp flickering in the dark veranda, and the mother sat with her back against the wall and her legs extended. No one knew where her mind roamed in that silence. I bet we have an idea of where that mind roamed in that silence. That is the Holy Mother, our mother. She often told us that she was our real mother, that she was not a stand-in, she was not a step-parent. We even have that story of one of the young men who asked her about that, and she said, "No, truly, I tell you, I am your real mother." And he said, "No, you can't be my real mother. My real mother lives, at my house in my village." And then the next moment he said he was rubbing her feet or something. And he looked up and his own mother was looking back at him. So yes, our divine mother, God as mother, taking care of all of us as her children, making sure we get enough food and not too much, making sure we're getting up early and doing our practice, giving us a little conscientious kick every now and then to keep it in gear. So, yeah, any thoughts, any comments, questions, or ideas? We should do a pilgrimage sometime. Take a group of us and go see. Like we'll be more focused. Well, I don't know. We'll see. It would be nice to do one trip and just do Mother, one trip and just do Ramakrishna, one trip and just do Vivekananda, instead of running and mixing everywhere. Or one long trip where we do Mother Week, Thakur Week, and Vivekananda Week. So, all right. We'll take that love and go forward. Know that God, your mother, is anxiously preparing you. Be well.